What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fandomnation. This is episode 4 since our rebranding, and we got a show in store for all of you tonight. We're talking Daredevil Born Again, the first 2 episodes. We do understand that episode 3 will come out when we're on air here. A more of a discussion, not a rumor, about a Halloween 4 sequel series that would star both Jamie Lee Curtis and Danielle Harris. This is on the heels of that Drum Dums, aka Lee McCoy video we were talking about last week, where he brought up the potential of an H2O sequel. He also discussed an H4 sequel, so we were saving that for this week. And last week we discussed a whole lot of Scream 7 for a bit and what all the different castings could mean. And we may have our answer on that. And I'm actually really curious to hear Johnny's take on that because he had some choice words for some of the things that might be going on in terms of how it's used. And we'll dive into that. Obviously, as I mentioned off the top, Daredevil Born Again review. These two gentlemen here are going to give their top 3 matches and why they are their top 3 matches from AEW Revolution. And then we'll discuss the Punk Seth Cage match from last night and what it means for the clear Triple Threat Mania match. Without further ado, though, you can find them at Bros Before Pros. Again, I swear, the hose just wants to come out, man. It's Johnny. What's going on, dude?
Not much of anything. Yeah, it's been a fun week. We did the over on Twitch. We did all the showcase for WWE 2K25. Finished that last night. Started up the first my GM. So lots of fun stuff going on over there.
How was the game? You enjoying it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Easy for noobs to pick up and play, or
For the most part, yeah. There's some systems that are going to be a bit more intricate and detailed than years past. The chain wrestling is one that's still, even for me. But other than that, they've simplified some things. Ladder matches are much easier now from a trying to win perspective. So that's a big plus for me. Yeah, everything's it's where knock on wood, everything's going pretty good for me so far, except the island.
Just a reminder, guys, keep yourselves muted while not talking. Someone's got some background noise. Also, apologize to the audience for my voice. It's very clear I'm getting over a bit of a rough cold. It's been a doozy of a week. Also joining us, it's Randy. What's going on, man?
Not a whole lot, actually. Just got through watching episode 2 not that long ago, so it's pretty fresh in my mind for Daredevil. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. Hopefully the rest of the season kind of follows pace with what we've gotten so far. But other than that, how are things going for you?
We all, it's cold season up here, right? Like we're transitioning from winter into spring, and boy, it kicked our ass this past week. Believe it or not, I'm at the end of mine. It might not sound like it, but I'm at the end of mine, which I'm thankful to be coming out of. And also, for those of you that are already in the stream right now, just a reminder that at 10 p.m. tonight, give or take a few minutes, Johnny, Randy, and I will be doing a free Patreon preview. Our normal Patreon program will click into effect once again come April 1st. No, that's not an April Fool's Day joke. It's just a poorly picked date by me. And we are going to watch episode 3 of season 1 of Andor. And I watched the first 2 episodes heading into this, and my feeling didn't change on them. I think they are the weakest episodes of that series. And we'll see if it holds up. But Randy specifically says Johnny's never seen episode 3. I seem to recall Andor, and this is our only Star Wars discussion here in the show, taking off during that 3rd episode. I'm pretty sure it was the 3rd episode that really made me go, oh, okay. This is why the first 2 episodes were the way they were. And now we're building up into something bigger and better.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely been that's the thing with Star Wars and like new stuff to some degree is a lot. Sometimes it just takes some getting used to, and they once they find their feet, it tends to take off. Whether it's the animation, some of the shows, it usually takes a little bit of time to find its feet.
Yeah, so looking forward to diving into that. Let's not waste any more time, though, and get into this. Big thanks to our channel sponsors for allowing us to come out and do what we do each week. Jason at Backtrack Cinema, Ryan over at Colleague Nation, Jesse Storytime Spectacular. Check all them out, and our buddy Maddie. Without them, we're not here doing what we do. Again, this is the 4th episode of Fandomnation. Feel like we're getting into the groove of things. Now, I've spoken with both Kieran and Mike Bish. Both of those guys are slated for appearances soon, and I say soon, sometime within the next month for both. So looking forward to having those guys on for select episodes that make sense. Let's dive into this. Last week we talked about the possibility of a Halloween H2O sequel series, and surprisingly, all of us were kind of on board that if they did it right, and if Josh Hartnett was the focus, that might make some sense. That they could sell us on, despite me really not wanting Jamie Lee Curtis back in the fold. Here we are a week later, fellas, and we're discussing the possibility of a Halloween 4 sequel series. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm incredibly biased with this one. H4 is my favorite Halloween film. I think it's the best made Halloween film, the best paced Halloween film. But it's important to remember in that movie, we find out that Laurie Strode died in a car accident. But for decades, not years, literal decades now, there has been this fan theory that she faked her death in order to provide safety, essentially, for Jamie Lloyd. Now, Danielle Harris and Jamie Lee Curtis got into it a bit on the red carpet or the orange carpet, whatever you want to call it, for Halloween Ends. Sounds like Jamie Lee Curtis didn't treat Danielle Harris and Scout Compton with the greatest of respect. But Lee threw out the idea over at Drum Dums. What if they did an H4 sequel series that would have, way down the line, remember H4 ends with that cliffhanger ending of Jamie at the top of the staircase, scissors in the hand, crazy ass Loomis is going to shoot the little girl, and she's just stabbed her foster mother. So what if they did a sequel series way down the line where it unites Danielle Harris and Jamie Lee Curtis? And that's sort of a way of bringing Jamie Lloyd's character, full circle to finding out her mom never died and potentially causing more mental stability issues with the character. Obviously, Michael Myers is in there somewhere. I will say this. I'm interested to get your guys' take on it. But for me personally, despite me being a huge H4 fan, again, favorite movie in the franchise, this one is less appealing to me than the H2 sequel or H2O sequel idea that we discussed last week, which would be led by Josh Hartnett. Don't get me wrong, I would love a much better sequel to H4 than H5. H5 is a fucking cesspool. But when put the two up against one another, it's just a hard sell for me on the whole Laurie Strode faked her death and just left her daughter behind. I know people have been on it for decades. It's just nothing that I've ever really bought into. And just the realistic side of things, if you're talking about the likelihood of either one of these possibilities happening, I think it's far more likely that you would get a sequel to H2O, which is the more popular movie in the fan base, than H4. Now, that's not to say that Danielle Harris and Jamie Lee Curtis can't be in a future Halloween project together. I simply don't see it working. Johnny, what do you think, man? You're muted, good sir.
There we go. um, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think it's tough for me to say one way or the other. You know, I think from a standpoint of success, I think obviously Josh Hartnett is the more valuable name outside of the hardcores. You know, the hardcores are going to go. You know, they probably prefer the H4 versus the H2O, but I John Q. Public is more likely to know the name Josh Hartnett than Danielle Harris. Um, I it's I think no matter what you do, obviously you're going to upset a chunk of the fan base. There's really no two ways about that. You know, uh, for me, I think it personally, to me, it doesn't matter which one you come back with, as long as the story's good. You know, I don't care. I enjoyed both of them, obviously, but I really, it's going to be an interesting thing to see because you do sort of have that, you know, uh, the Danielle Jamie thing is, I don't want to say relevant, but it is sort of an extra thing that's out there, that you can, I don't want to say build off of, but it's an extra thing that's going to get people talking. And I think that helps. I really, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not so invested in either one that I want it one way and not the other. But it's it's an interesting idea for me, to come back with that because I think there was more. I don't want to say there was more to the story in that line, but from a certain perspective, there was. So I, 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 it's hard for me to sit here and pick without a story to attach to it. Like I can't. I don't want to get too invested.
You're working off a series of hypotheticals.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Like it's I think there's more story meat on the bone picking up H4 than H2O because to the H2O it was very, I don't want to say generic, but there was far less meat on the bone as far as the story went. It was just about it was just about Laurie and Michael. Adding in Danielle and that sort of leads to the Cult of Thorn, which leads to the more supernatural elements of the Michael Myers mythos, which to a certain degree I think is missing in the H2O line and even the modern trilogy. I think that it plays a little better in that because it does allow you to answer the question of how Michael is so Terminator. Like that's the one thing that's just sort of left, especially in the new trilogy where you have this, Michael who's been locked up in a facility for the last, decades of his life and is still the Terminator in strength and stamina. Like, what? How does that make sense? Especially under the conditions he was likely being kept. So, adding that sort of supernatural element to it, I think helps. But again, I don't know. It's all about the story you tell. I think with H4, there's more possibilities for where you could go as far as meaningful story, whereas H2O I think has more bankable star power and star quality that you can use that versus, having quite as much meat on the bone. You have a bit more cushion and star power than you would in H4. So they both have their pros and they both have their cons. It's just all in what you add to it versus just the base.
Yeah, it's tough for me because there's a big part of me that doesn't believe they will ever greenlight any H4 sequel. And yet, we have our resident JLC superfan in the chat, Joel, which we'll get to in a second. But like for me, if we're gonna bring back Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd, you don't need Jamie Lee Curtis. You just don't. And I would hate to see the attention taken away from her. Joel, I read your message here. JLC wasn't disrespectful to Danielle. The latter just expect her to know who she was and went on a podcast with Scout DeWine about it. In the end, though, she got the attention she wanted. Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say Jamie Lee Curtis should know who Danielle Harris is, because Danielle Harris is one of the names that carried this franchise when Jamie Lee Curtis wanted nothing to do with it. So should she have seen the movies? Honestly, yeah, probably. But the other side of this is if Jamie Lee Curtis did no wrongdoing, then why did she apologize to both Danielle Harris and Scout Compton, and then proceed to send Danielle's kids some children's books from her in the mail? So there's some frustration on both sides. I think it was a big moment for Danielle Harris, and this isn't the first time I've heard of Jamie Lee Curtis having an attitude like this in public, and it's one of my problems I have with her involvement in the Halloween franchise. Is I feel that yes, she, without her star power, the effectiveness of the David Gordon Green trilogy is just not there. Whether you're for it or against it, there's no doubt where it stood in the public eye. That being said, if it wasn't for so many other people, the Halloween franchise would have never gotten to a point where it was even possible to bring some of these names back. Randy, how about you? What are your thoughts on a potential H4 sequel series?
I mean, I don't even think a good story would see. I'm not a fan of the idea, just because a lot of retconning would have to be done, and you're going about it in a way where you have to explain Jamie Lloyd's youth and growing up. I mean, that could be part of the series. Obviously, you can explain what she's been through and how she's grown into who she is, things like that. But still, to me, that's still not interesting enough. Just because of the whole Cult of Thorn stuff was what it was, and it wasn't the greatest, but at least it was better than Resurrection, that's for sure. Anyway, I don't know if I could.
It's not a high bar, my friend.
Did I say it was? I just can't get behind it. I liked the idea of an H2O sequel series just because I wouldn't say, even though it's more recent film, not obviously old enough, but there's still the characters themselves that survived. There's a potentially really strong story there that we never got to experience, whereas we already have a story for Jamie Lloyd, and it's going, you're talking about retconning part of her life to try to create something else. Now, obviously, everybody's like, hey, this could work, because you look at what we got with branching off from Halloween and getting, our David Gordon Green's Halloween, where that it completely supplanted 2 and went straight from there. So could it work? Sure. But is it something I'm interested in? Not really. As much as I enjoy, Danielle Harris, or even if Jamie Lee Curtis was involved, I don't know if they could really put together something that would keep my attention. It's just what it is.
Yeah, I think my preference would be if you're bringing back Danielle Harris for another run at Jamie Lloyd, then you don't need Jamie Lee Curtis. Keep the focus on her, do a story about her. I think the whole idea that Laurie Strode being alive in that timeline would very quickly take away all the attention from Jamie Lloyd and once again put it on Laurie Strode, which for me is it's a hard pass. The question is, would any watching after the fact be interested in a Halloween 4 sequel series that would involve not just Danielle Harris, but Jamie Lee Curtis? Comment down below and share your thoughts there. All right. We talked about this one last week. And there's a plot rumor out there, and I can't talk about the validity of it, but I can tell you it's coming from not just one place, but a few different places, which leads me to believe where there's smoke, there's fire. Last week, Johnny, you were pretty against the idea of it just being like a dream sequence, correct?
I mean, I'm not for it, that's for sure.
So, I will say spoiler alert now before we dive into this, just in case it ends up being true. And I've had almost a week now, I guess about 6 days, to sit on this and stew on it. And it frustrates me to say this because after having that amount of time to think about it, I do believe that this is true. And I'm not at all sure how I feel about it, to be honest. And I have a hunch that when you guys hear what this rumor is, you might think it's true too. So I love Johnny's idea of the next Scream movie being Stab. And you have all the characters or actors playing themselves, playing the characters, essentially. It sounds like that is not the case. Sorry, one moment here, guys. It's like the more I talk, the more I get clogged. Need to be able to breathe. Kind of important. So it sounds like that's not the case. I want it to be, but I don't think it is. This rumor suggests that the way that all of these characters come back is through AI. And the more I think about different things Scream has done in terms of being meta, in terms of being current, in terms of taking real world things and involving it in their movies, I think that the rumor is legit. Now, apparently, the AI would go as far as, I don't want to say it's FaceTime, because I don't think it'll be FaceTime. I don't think they're going to get a deal with Facebook, but some sort of messenger service that has video that allows it to seem as if those people are actually appearing in the movie. And the more that I think about it and all the talk about AI, and, as Star Wars fans, we've talked about, doing the deep fakes and stuff like that. I got to tell you guys, it seems real on the nose. And until I see otherwise, I do believe that's where this is going. Not just because it's coming from so many different places that, where there's smoke, there's fire, but just hearing it it's sort of meta in its own right, and it's a hot button topic in Hollywood right now, which wouldn't be the first time Scream's tackled something like this. One, what do you think of the validity of it? And two, what do you think of the idea in general?
I think it's stupid. Just top to bottom, I think it's stupid. Um, I understand the idea. Scream has always sort of been about that sort of thing. Now that's very at Scream's core. The fake phone calls and the voice modulation and all of that stuff. That's very much part of Scream's core. And from that perspective, I can see, I can understand that being a route they take, especially in this era of deep fake and voice calling and that being part. Like I can understand that from a standpoint of it's not illogical. It is a very logical sort of next step for Scream. Um, with the way they conduct, how their killers act and things like that. So that makes sense from a logic standpoint. From a storytelling standpoint, I think it's fucking ridiculous. Like it's the epitome of everything I don't want it to be. If you listen to every episode where we've talked about this, and every time we've talked about this, and every time we've talked about anything that involves this, I love nostalgia in service of story. This is not nostalgia in service of story. This is nostalgia in service of nostalgia. This is member berries. This is, oh, it's great. Look at that. There's Scott Foley. Or there's, oh man, I love this. Seeing all these guys again. I love it. No, it's not. It's stupid. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't progress the story forward. It serves no purpose other than nostalgia. And like if these actors are coming back out of the good of their heart and taking scale payments to do it, then okay, fine, I guess. But they're not doing that. Let's be honest, they're not doing that. They're collecting shockingly large paychecks for very little work, and everybody's supposed to smile and be happy. I'm not happy. I think it's stupid because it doesn't push the story forward. Like, I would be more inclined to be okay with, like, we've discussed in past dream sequences, like Sydney dreaming about these characters, or things like that, or Randy's videotapes of past, things like that actually serve to push the story forward. I don't hate those things. Like, Randy's presence in Scream 3 made perfect sense, despite the fact he died in Scream 2, because it was his videotape. It was his rules for surviving a trilogy. Made sense, pushed the story forward, so his presence was necessary for story progression. This doesn't progress the story. Nothing about it is progressive. It's just purely nostalgia. It's purely, oh, these are the killers who stalked you in the past, so I'm going to pretend to be them, so ha 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 ha. No. I think that's ridiculous. I think stupid. Like, it's just, it does nothing other than nostalgia, and that, and I don't like that. I don't like, nostalgia for nostalgia's sake has its purpose and has its place. Not like this. Not in these moments. Like,
No, hey man, I'm actually right there with you. Um, and yet it feels so on the nose that I think it's likely this. Now, who knows what that leaves for the actual story about whoever the killer actually is, and what his end game is, but feels very real to me. And I gotta say, I'm not liking what I'm hearing. So I hope it's fake, but it feels like there's too much there for it to be fake. I'll say this: all the years of clamoring to get Matthew Lillard back and how Stu could have survived, I thought it'd be bad enough if Stu was either a ghost or in a dream sequence. But boy, if he's just a short AI appearance, there's going to be, I mean, I think some people will be happy just to have him back regardless. But I think the people that actually want to have a good story are not going to be happy with this turn of events. Randy?
So listening to this, I'm literally sitting here going, huh, this almost sounds like they took part of the plot from Virtuosity out of this and said, let's throw it into a Scream movie. That's what's next. They're going to add VR to it as well. She's getting chased by the killers in VR because of the AI. I mean, what the hell? Using AI is one thing. I think that is one of the things that I thought was kind of neat with like the movie Virtuosity is compiling all the data of serial killers and putting into an AI, and then the AI end up being in an android essentially. But it's just in this case, you're trying to keep it serious to some degree, yet you're bringing back all these characters for what purpose? And thinking about what you said, using AI, it's like using their images, using videos and that can bring their voice and their likeness into it. Um, it's, I mean, it's scary to think that we are that far in technology because it's a very real thing that we face daily. And I guess it does kind of fit if you're going to try to create the meta for in a way, but ultimately if all you're doing is for the sake of doing it, if you're doing it for the sake of a paycheck, then you're creating a movie for the wrong reason. That you want to entertain your fans, you don't want to lose them just because you're throwing shit against the wall and hoping it sticks. And that's kind of what this feels like. And it's a shame because since I haven't seen all of them, I actually started going back to rewatch them. I've watched the first two, and I like the second one better than the first one. But it's just
Me too. We're in the minority, believe me on that one, but me too.
like I hate to say it, but I actually liked Mickey. I liked that. I liked his character.
Well, who doesn't? Timothy
Timothy
Oliphant
Olyphant. Yeah.
is, yeah.
But ultimately, this I hate to say it, if everything comes true that we're speculating here based off of rumors and things like that that's being piecemealed together from the internet, fans are probably gonna be really disappointed with this and it's a shame. There's so much they could be doing with this, and I just think they're not going to do it. I think they're just throwing names out there for nostalgia reasons, and sometimes when you do that, it just falls flat, and that's kind of where this is headed, unfortunately.
The other reason why I believe this is true is Johnny kind of alluded to this. Is you have so many people coming back, right? We're not just talking a couple. We're talking like now we're up to like 10 people. And there could be more that we don't know about. And the idea that they're paying all these guys a significant amount of money for, you know, even a small role, I don't think they're great odds. I think it's more than likely several of these characters are going to be a very brief, 30 seconds to a minute video call. And then they're done. Something that didn't require them to even really be on set for. And it's frustrating because that's not what I want out of it. But it sounds likely at this point. Let us know down below in the comment section, whether you're watching live or after the fact, what you think about the idea of Scream 7 being AI driven. Sounds like we're all kind of lukewarm on the idea. And by the way, Randy gave some love to Mickey, aka Timothy Olyphant. No offense to Billy and Stu. I thought Mickey was and not just saying this because of Timothy Olyphant. I became a Timothy Olyphant fan because of his acting ability. I think he's way more effective in that second movie than the other two are in the first. Just me. Let's move on, though, fellas. It's come. 2 episodes are out to the public. Actually, well, I guess now there's 3. But we're going to stay focused on the first 2 episodes here of Daredevil Born Again. We're not going to get into massive details here because we just don't have the time for it. But let me start off by saying this. That first episode, Both episodes I think are great, by the way, and there's so much I love about both. But that opening, I think it's 16 minutes, 17 minutes of that first episode, between the storytelling choices, the character choices, the cinematography, the sound design, the lighting, the music choices. For me, it is the greatest opening to a comic book TV show. So that does not include movies. A comic book TV show that we have ever gotten. And I don't think there's a close second. It was that effective, that good. Even those sons of bitches killed Foggy. That's right. Spoiler alert. I loved Foggy too, right? You know, big Fulton Reed fan here, and it was hard, right? What's going on, Jesse? Hope you're well, buddy. Because it's like, if I had to choose between one of the two dying, it's Karen all day. But if I had to choose which is the more effective death to, build stakes and launch the story into a compelling direction, it's Foggy, unfortunately. And I loved everything about it. And I don't know if you guys know who the Kills are, the band, but the song selection at the beginning, my dad was a huge fan of them. He got me into the band a little bit. Oh, who's in? Sorry, Jade's playing Call of Duty, and Michael Myers is there.
And there's the drive-through one, which is the one that we said was creepy.
He looks a little beefy. Looks like he's been on a Burger King diet. Anyway, they chose the Kills, The Future Starts Now. And if you know anything about that song or the lyrics or the tone, if there was anything that was going to give away someone was going to die, it was that song selection right out of the gate. So as soon as I heard that song, and the fact that it's not just in the background, it's pretty noticeable. You get to hear basically the whole fucking song. I'm still here a week later, mesmerized by just how fucking good that was. And we'll get to episode 2 in a second, but just that first episode, Johnny.
I mean, everything about it, start to finish, was simply phenomenal. There's no, I can't argue anything that happened in it from a story perspective. It was amazing. You were invested right from the jump. Unfortunately for me, I'd done a pretty good job staying spoiler free until literally that night, when some particular thing I scrape off the bottom of my shoe decided to post in a group that's not a non-spoiler group, right out the gate. Oh my god, they killed Foggy. Murderous rage ensued. Even knowing that it was coming, I had to wait a bit to watch with some friends of mine. So we didn't get to watch it until Thursday night. We watched the first episode. And even knowing it was coming, the emotion, the intensity, everything about that scene, from the visual standpoint to the sound design, like literally hearing Boggy's heartbeat through the entire course of that fight, hearing it slow, and knowing that's like, once I realized that's what it was I was hearing, it was just oh god, we're hearing what Matt's hearing, and Matt's hearing his best friend's heart stop beating, and it's just, the intensity of that moment was amazing. And it got even better, when they brawled to the roof, and Matt finally sort of lost to his inner demons and tried to kill Bullseye, throwing him off the roof. It was Karen that stole the moment. in that when she heard that thud and that body hit the ground and not knowing who it is, and just that whole moment of her, praying that she didn't lose the two most important people in her life in such a short span, like feeling that emotion from her in that moment is just, from all of the greatness in that opening sequence, it's the one spot that hasn't been getting the love it deserves, because everything else is so, like, there's so many amazing things in that inevitably something great is going to sort of get the short shaft, and that's what it's been. But, like, that moment with her, not knowing who just hit the ground behind her and having felt Foggy's death, the last breath, all of that emotion in that was just so, oh my God, like, all of it was just, it was phenomenal. It was amazing. It was one of the best. It was amazing, playing that through all through the episode. And then you get you know, the chef's kiss that is the lighting design, with Matt and Wilson in the end there being bathed, Wilson in the white light and Matt in the red light, was just beautiful, like the way they juxtaposed those two and the way the episode played out. And don't get me wrong, I got my jokes in, as one would expect, but, just, it was an amazing episode. The story was great. I love, you can never go wrong with Vincent D'Onofrio in anything. I don't think I've seen that guy put in a bad performance in anything. And it comes through here. Charlie's performance was great. Having the new characters was great. And just, I loved it. Top to bottom, it was it was easily, for me, the best episode of Daredevil, period.
I mean, that's some high praise right there for sure. And for me, I mean, I'll just focus on just the first 16 minutes. The roller coaster of emotions that in a 16-minute span that you got from that, the fuzzy feel good feeling of the nostalgia of just seeing the three together again, doing what they've always done, leading to the excitement of seeing him put the mask on and doing his thing. But then, of course, the terror and the realization setting in that someone is about to be either a shot or be shot at. And will he get there in time to help? There's always, and then of course, the intensity, the brutality, the grittiness of that fight was absolutely so well choreographed. It's amazing.
Did you, before you go any further, did either one of you guys notice anything about that fight?
The fact that it was that single hallway shot that they tend to do so well with those fights.
It's a oneer, but done on multiple levels.
Hey, they got to one up what they've done before.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But then obviously, you guys, the heartbreak of the entire time of him fighting Bullseye, him still always checking on Foggy, and as the fight goes on, hearing the heartbeat slow. And I just sat there and like, man, who's cutting onions in here? This is ridiculous. But ultimately, just at the end, you felt what Matt felt. You felt the rage because, I think everybody knew Foggy was great and everybody loved Foggy. And you wanted to be the person that just took out Bullseye because of that. It made you feel that raw emotion. And once all that's said and done, and, like Johnny said, Karen, he's hearing a body hit behind her and not knowing who it was, adds to the scene, adds to just the terror of the situation, of that high intensity of it. And then 1 year later, and it's just like, how do you come down from that? How do they expect you to be able to roll with the majority of the rest of the episode when they've pulled you so far up here because of that roller coaster emotions, and then they expect you to be able to just kind of keep it all together the rest of the way? And it was so well done that that scene can play over and over in my head because it was just that good and that memorable.
Yeah, they did a top-notch job on it. Important to note here is that whole first episode did not exist until they went back and did reshoots. The second episode was essentially going to be the first episode, with some minor changes. And I don't think this is a spoiler alert because the Hollywood Reporter and Discussing Film have both confirmed this, that Foggy and Karen are both expected back for season 2. And some people would be like, well, how's that possible? And I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, shows do flashbacks all the time. So there was, I don't remember what they were now, but there's a couple of nods to the MCU in the episode and events that have happened. I want to say, I might be get confusing the episodes, but in either episode 1 or episode 2, Fisk alludes to Spider-Man. No, we won't see Spider-Man. He can't legally appear in the series. Thanks, Sony. But I love the storytelling, the world building. Johnny's right about Vincent D'Onofrio. Like, there's nothing that guy can't do. His range is incredible. You take, a serious villain like Wilson Fisk, and then you take, sort of the tongue-in-cheek, goofy villain that he plays in Jurassic World, and yet he does it so well.
Same guy?
Yeah, same guy. And I know, he doesn't look like it, though, does it? Sorry, Jay just figured out that that's the same guy. But it's just incredible. And in terms of like episode construction, there was some Smallville in this too. And one of the things Smallville did so well in their first, I'd say, 6 years, basically the Lex Luthor run, the first 7 seasons, pardon me, is in that show, the episodes always end with some sort of, musical note from a real piece of music that defines the tone and the feeling that's going on in that moment, in that episode. Johnny, you brought up the lighting choices there at the end of the first episode. Fisk and Daredevil, I don't know the song that they use, but like, it's not like it plays for like 10 seconds. It's a whole musical outro to really get that feeling going in it. The first thing I thought about is, well, that's what Smallville used to do so well. Not comparing the tone of the show to Smallville, it's nothing alike. But that choice in terms of the construction was great. I thought Fisk's presence in the episode was fantastic. And I'll be curious to see where he goes, because I do actually think he has some good intentions with this. But you know what they say about good intentions. Sometimes the worst things come from good intentions or the best of intent. Any other points you guys want to tackle on episode 1 before we move to episode 2?
No,
I think we pretty much hit it. The night we got, justice for Foggies to some degree, and in episode 1, and yeah, the light, the healing for Matt starting to begin, which is always, a bonus. And plus, we get to understand why he hung up the suit. I mean, I think we hit on what we needed to. And yeah, D'Onofrio, the way he portrays Fisk in this is so well done and so well written. I'm really curious to see, past episode 2, kind of really where they take with this character, because dude's full of surprises.
I guess the only other thing I would say is the meeting in the diner was as intense as, watching Daredevil in a fight. Like, it was wrestling term here to an extent, poetry in motion.
Without even raising their voices, just speaking normal tones, and you could feel the tension.
I did like, was it in episode 1 or 2 that he gets out and tells them to fix the road? I did find that quite, so yeah, I found that quite funny. Yeah, that was comical. It's like, yeah, only if things worked that way in real life, it'd be
right.
Nice. So that was good. I liked episode 2. We dive into more Matt the lawyer, which I've always enjoyed, and obviously a little bit of a different look at him this time around. And there's the cop that finds him on the rooftop who's working for him. Was he in any of the original Daredevil run or no?
Cherry?
Yeah.
I want to say yes.
I can't remember. It's been so long. We didn't brush up on
no
on it beforehand, so
I want to say yes, but I have to go back and check for sure.
I mean, it's possible he could have always been at Josie's when they were there.
Yeah. And then in episode 2, I don't want to steal Johnny's thunder because he sent me a message as he was watching it, which I thought, hit the nail on the head for how I felt. But I really enjoyed the whole crooked cop.
Yeah.
Take on episode 2, like it's all through the episode. By the way, that guy getting smoked by the train was just that was one hell of an image. But that end sequence fight, oh my god!
Oh wow,
that was something else. Johnny, I'm going to let you sort of break down what happens and what your thought was on it, because obviously it's leading to one of my favorite comic book characters down the road here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you had the story in episode 1 with the White Tiger and getting arrested, and the only witness being the guy that was saved. And you find him, but the cops also find him, and you get the big moment where they sort of, Matt gets him away and sends him to Cherry, and they start getting handsy with Matt, and one of the sleeves roll up, and you see a Punisher tattoo, like of the Punisher skull. And my immediate response, I said this both to Sean, in a text, and to the people I was watching it, and my response was something to the effect of, "Oh, I know someone who's really gonna love that." And it was an amazing moment, like for someone who knows Daredevil, who knows the Punisher. It was a great moment, knowing that this is where the story's going to head, and it does sort of explain a bit more of why, Punisher's getting involved and what they're sort of setting up for with his one-off special and all that. It was a great moment because it played off the oh shit. And then of course you have Matt, arguing with himself while the cops think he's arguing with them, and he unleashes the Daredevil on them. Just it was another great scene, it was another great moment. I'm excited to see where they follow back from. That's one of the reasons I kind of wish I was watching tonight, because we actually had this discussion with the friends I was watching it with, when Frank's going to show up. He's credited as of episode 3, so my assumption is he shows up at the end of the episode that aired tonight. That's my guess.
Yeah, I've heard he's in a few episodes, and
I think he's credited in every episode after 3.
Oh, really? Okay, that
he's credited in a lot of episodes.
To me, I thought he was getting 3, maybe 4 of the 9. And yeah, as we know, you made reference. I don't know if we talked about it last week, but actually, I think we did. We did mention that Punisher's getting his basically a straight to Disney Plus movie.
Yeah, we did. We talked about it.
That John Bernthal is co-writing. Jade and I actually went back, and we're not watching season 1 right now. We wanted to start with season 2, and we got through the first episode of season 2 of The Punisher, which I won't lie, even though I'm a big Punisher guy, I definitely not watched that since it first came out, and just the quality of that show. and Bernthal as Frank Castle. As much as I'm a Thomas Jane guy, Bernthal as Castle in this particular world, there's no better fit.
I'm still not huge on Bernthal's Punisher. I never have been. Well, that's not to say it's not a bad or anything. It just,
I like his Frank Castle. Like to me, those are it's kind of like Two-Face. They're the same guy,
I understand.
They're not the same guy. So
it's the same as the Spider-Man principle. You can be a great Peter Parker, but a bad Spider-Man.
Yeah, well,
vice versa.
That's how I felt about Christian Bale and Batman, right? I loved his Bruce Wayne, but his Batman was, 50-50. Sorry, Randy, we're on a tangent, man. Give us your episode 2 thoughts, bro.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, let's try to right the ship. Episode 2, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, you get to see, just like you said, more of Matt being a lawyer, but that scene with White Tiger saving the guy on the train, and by the train, and that one dude just getting wasted. I was just like, oh, whoops. And then of course, I'm a cop, and it's like, you couldn't have led with that. But yeah, that scene was, the fighting style was, really, it felt real. You know how sometimes when you see fights and you're just like, oh yeah, they're just overtly choreographed and it just doesn't feel like anything. This fight on the platform felt real. Like there was just some real, just the holds and the throws, and there's just a gravitas to it that really kind of just lent itself to that. And we get to fast forward to, Matt finding him because he's at the station and taking on his case, and we get to see just how they operate now to try to find the information they need. And I will say the whole little subplot with the police commissioner and Fisk is interesting. It showed that Fisk still has a part of the Kingpin still in him, even though he's trying to do everything he can to be on the straight and narrow. It really shows that no matter how good he's going to try to be, there's always going to be that piece of the Kingpin that's always going to come out. It's always going to be there. And I'm here for it because we got to see the good guy Fisk, who's like, hey, fix this hole. And then we got to see the Kingpin, who he's like, oh, you know about that Philly cheesesteaks? And then you see the picture of the kid and the woman, and it's just like, yeah, this is going to be very interesting just because I want to see how he plays that. He balances all that out. I think that's going to be a real central part for him. And then that fight when Matt just unleashed on the dirty cops, I was like, wow, the brutality of that fight, the choreography of that fight, just the realness of that fight. It was so well done. I love the choreography in this year in the show, and even in the previous Daredevil series. It's so well done, and I like how they give you that just down and dirty, brutal grittiness that you don't really get to see in a lot of superhero stuff. So, but to leave it on that, I'm kind of hankering for the third episode because I want to see the aftermath. I want to see the range of emotion that Matt's going to go through after unleashing that for keeping it bottled up for so long. I kind of need to see how he reacts to just unleashing like that again.
I did say to Jade during that scene where Matt is just, pun intended here, punishing them, that they should be thankful that it was him that found them and not Frank himself that found them. So, Daredevil can inflict some punishment where the Punisher is a little more cruel than Daredevil is. So,
I don't know. Some of them injuries, man. When he snapped that dude's arm.
Even the head plant move there. Oh, my God.
Yeah, those are healable. Frank would just shoot them.
Yeah.
Or stick a grenade in their pants or something, something crazy. Yep.
And yeah, John, I just checked the episodes because as we know, there's 17 episodes between the two seasons. And He is listed in way more episodes than I ever would have thought, and IMDb's not always right, so
No,
remain
and again, those are just
skeptical,
his
but
credited
I
appearances, not his
certainly
actual appearances.
hope it's right. So, but we'll have to wait and see. The question is, what did all of you think of Daredevil Born Again? Episodes 1 and 2, let us know down in the comment section below what you thought. I'll say this as my closing thought is, I think given, our divisive history with Disney Plus and what they've done with most of the Star Wars shows and even a lot of the MCU shows, I was really worried that when you take a show like this and knowing it's a continuation from the Netflix show, I was really worried it was just going to feel like, that it wasn't that show and that we're just supposed to believe that it's that show based on the characters that are in it. And it didn't feel like the series was Disney-fied at all to me. It felt mature, not kid-friendly, still dark and gritty. Maybe not to the extent of the Netflix show, but I had no complaints. I thought they knocked it out of the park, guys. What about you?
I mean, I agree 100%. I like the pacing of the show. I like the fact that in 2 episodes we've gotten the quantity of like 4 Star Wars episodes. So yeah, I'm happy with that, and I can't wait to. I hope this keeps going because it's definitely got my attention.
Yeah. Like we said, tonight's episode is out 47 minutes. Already, we are almost at the cumulative length of a season of a Star Wars show. What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing? Like, it's ridiculous.
What's going on, Jerry? So I did reply to your comment with a direct link to the oh my god, I don't want to misquote this now. Sorry, we're deep in a Daredevil discussion here, and I don't want to get this wrong. Late Night with Fandom is what our Patreon show is called. I did reply, reply to you with a direct link, and I know the graphic says patreon.com/fandomnation. The actual link is still patreon.com/fandomempire, and the Fandom Nation won't go into effect until April 1st, so all the Patreon content will be free until then. Your best bet is joining the Facebook group, man, Fandom Nation, or contacting me on X or Instagram, and just seeing if we reply to you. In terms of the name change, the getting rid of Haddonfield and Beyond, our hands were tied with that one. Someone else, made the choice to abruptly leave. And it was, in a nutshell, it was unfortunate that it had to happen, but I believe in treating people with respect, and there were some people that definitely weren't treated with respect, and so that was for the best. The Fandom Empire to Fandom Nation is 100% on me. Totally on me. And we explained this a couple of shows ago. Essentially, the show is Johnny, Randy, and I now. We are the 3 primary hosts. We're the guys that you're going to see most weeks on this show. Now, that doesn't mean that Matt's not going to pop up. I think Matt's been on the last 2 weeks. Doesn't mean that Mike Bish isn't going to pop up. He's scheduled to appear soon. Same with Kieran, same with Tommy. But when those guys aren't regularly around like they were in the past, it didn't feel right to continue on with the Fandom Empire name because it felt like we were selling people a bill of false goods. Where Fandom Nation is definitely mine, Randy, and Johnny's thing. And there will not be another name change for a long time unless one of us was to drop out. But I believe in the name representing the people that are on. Maybe we'll go with Fandom Dumbasses as the next name. I don't know. But no, Fandomnation is what we're sticking with. And, not that we don't appreciate the other name. I have all the love in the world for Fandom Empire. But that's not what the show has been for a very long time. And it didn't feel right to continue to call it. Again, in a picture-perfect world, Haddonfield and Beyond would still be here. But those were, unfortunately, decisions that needed to be made. In terms of finding the after show, though, man, if you have any more issues, let us know. We are doing a watch party to Andor right after this. Andor Season 1, Episode 3. Which will probably be about 10 or 15 minutes late getting to. And that's just a public link that's on the channel. All right, fellas. Keeping in mind, we do not have the time to go long-winded here. I've only seen highlights, extensive highlights, but didn't see the pay-per-view. So we'll start with Randy. Dude, give me your top 3 matches and why. Starting from 3, working your way up to 1.
Really is, because a lot of these matches were great, especially, but I mean the top 3. I will go for number 3. I'll do Kenny and Takeshita, just because it's the first time we got to see Kenny really go all out after battling with diverticulitis, and it was a hell of a story. Those two have great chemistry in the ring. It was hard hitting, some really
Johnny killed Randy.
Great spots, but ultimately, because of that, I figure that'll be my number 3, because I know Kenny's only going to get better. He's going to get stronger. I feel like it was the right way to go to have him win the international title as well. For my number 2, Kieran and I were messaging each other back and forth. This is the entire pay-per-view because of just everything that was going on. I'm going to go, my number 2 is going to go with Ospreay and Fletcher, just because of the ridiculous spots those guys took. You could feel the energy and the hatred between each other in the match. And I mean, considering, the fact that we got off the top, we got so many crazy moves. It amazes me how those guys are not more injured than they already are, than they could have ever been going into that match. It absolutely just blew my mind. So many holy shit spots. It's crazy. Lastly, so my number 1 is going to be Toni Storm versus Mariah May. That was an absolute masterpiece of a match between those two. And for them to show that, hey guys, we can bleed just as much as you, and the sheer brutality of that match, and just the pacing and the storytelling, chef's kiss. I mean, if Meltzer could give a six stars on that, he would, if he hasn't already. But yeah, that's definitely my top match of the pay-per-view.
Johnny, how about it?
I mean, for me, it's tough. It was a top to bottom. There's only one match I can point to and be like, that match stunk.
You mean the main event?
No, I don't. We're not going there because we'll be here way too long. I'm not.
All right.
The hate on that match is undeserved. The only match on the card that was a stinker is the match that everyone and their uncle knew was going to be a stinker going into it. The Hurt Syndicate and the Outrunners. It was bound to be a stinker, and it was. It's the only stinker on the card. Top matches, you could make a case for so many.
I know.
Just as easily, the entire first half of the card, you could make a case to be in the top 3. Top to bottom, Hangman MJF could be in this. Any of these matches could be in the conversation for top 3. But for me, if you're going to discuss top 3, these are the ones that stuck with me coming out of it for one reason or another. Number 3, Swerve and Ricochet is the number 3 match on this card, because it showed me what I've known all along. These guys can go. These guys can wrestle. These guys have it. Ricochet is proof positive that the WWE style of booking does not work for everyone. It just doesn't. Ricochet is a prime example of that. He has shown more charisma in the last month than he did his entire WWE run, because they're giving him material. They're giving him a chance to sink or swim on his own. And he's swimming. He is swimming well. That match was amazing. I love the story within it, the swerve of Nana leaving to come back, the robe, all of the stuff in it. I loved it. It was an amazing match between two guys who I've seen have amazing matches before, and I'm sure we'll see amazing matches after. But it was a phenomenal match. It was an amazing match. It was what I had hoped for from them all along, and they delivered all the way through, and I loved it. Number 2 is, again, so many cases.
Can you see why even I struggled with this?
Oh, absolutely. It's worth struggling. But, I mean, I'm in agreement with you rest of the way, not necessarily for the same reasons, but with what's on top. Ospreay and Fletcher in the cage, because even I'm sitting there, I did not expect some of these things that came out of this match, Like, I knew, right, I said right from the jump, please do not let someone die. That was my fear with these two. And some of those spots within that match, I loved how the story they told went from top to bottom through. I loved the way they, interjected Mark Davis into the match, being his part of the story. I loved all of that. When those two motherfuckers went to the top of that cage and I sussed out the spot they were about to do.
Oh, I know.
Stopped breathing. Just like straight up, oh God, please don't die. And then they hit the spot, the Spanish fly off the top of the cage. And I'm still like, because, again, two phenomenal workers. Fletcher sold that so well that for a minute there, he was not moving. Like, even I'm watching for like the obvious signs, like, are the lungs still going? Are you still breathing? Are you out?
Yeah.
Is this about to, is this going to go down in the history as something that, we never want to talk about again?
And it's not like Ospreay landed flush either. He kind of landed on his side.
And they get back up and they continue, and the way they delivered the finish was beautiful. Him setting up in the corner for the elbow, and Fletcher just yelling at him. He hates him. He fucking hates him. All of that. You could feel it. Mm-hmm. You could feel every word he said. I loved it. The delivery. And then the Tiger Driver with no remorse, no second thought, just straight up, straight down, with authority, was just, oh God, it was beautiful. I loved it. They scared the bejesus out of me, which is what I expected from them. They delivered top to bottom. The intensity was all there. Just a phenomenal. One of the best cage matches I've probably ever seen. It was that good. But still not the best on the card, which is saying something. I agree. It was Tony and Mariah that stole the show. Again, it was the Hollywood ending. Everything about that match was what I had hoped for. We got to see Mariah bring it at a level I didn't even know she was capable of. Because she is still so fresh to the business. She's only been around a handful of years at this point, and bringing it at that level was just, oh God, it was beautiful. I loved that whole match. The story throughout it, the production throughout it was amazing. The actual wrestling was great. The way they incorporated all of the different elements of what was otherwise a great story, I just, it was And the visual of the ending, like the actual ending, with the Hollywood table and Tony taking her victory, and her and Mariah both sort of just lying there in defeat, and the camera panning out, and you see the end on the screen. Like, it was beautiful. It was genuinely beautiful, and it reminded me that a lot of times directing from a visual standpoint in wrestling is sort of the thing that's left behind. We've spent so long with the dredge years of Kevin Dunn that we forgot how important it is to wrestling. And this match reminded you of that in a big way, because it added that production level. It added everything to it, and the story, and introducing all of the different things that make the story great. The shoe, all of those things that are important to their story were part of this match, making it the perfect ending to an otherwise amazing story that, through ups and downs of it, has been going for, at this point, nearly 2 years.
Yep, long-term storytelling.
And it's one of those things that reminds you that long-term storytelling works when you tell a good story. And I'm excited for what comes next. This is the problem, is that I don't know what comes next for Tony. There's nobody waiting in the wings. There's nobody, in the sidelines for Tony. Can't say the same for Mercedes, because that one I can pretty clearly see where that one's going. I can already tell you right now, it's her and Athena in July in Texas. That's the match.
So, forgive me if I'm wrong. Would you say that is the best her finisher has ever looked?
Storm Zero?
No, I'm talking about for Mercedes. Like, the best her finisher has ever looked.
It's the same reminder I had watching Collision about Serena. Put her in the ring with a great wrestler, and she'll remind you how great she is. Same can be said about the match on Sunday. Especially when you add in the fact that somewhere towards the back, towards the finish, Momo got hurt her ankle somewhere along the line in the back half, and you still didn't notice. I didn't notice. I saw no indication of that until after the fact, when you hear about it, and it's like, oh, well, that explains it. Yet at the same time, wow, it just reminded you how great a wrestler Mercedes actually is. Because a lot of the times you don't get to see that. And it was a great reminder of what she's capable of at the upper tier.
Well, I didn't get to see the pay-per-view, but I saw a bunch of the highlights, and some of the stuff that's in that Ospreay Fletcher match is just fucking crazy.
That's putting it mildly.
I saw some of the stuff from MJF Hangman. That looked good, minus the fact that it looked like MJF almost broke Hangman's neck.
Well, I mean, Hangman pretty much face planted MJF on the Angel's wings. I mean, drove his face into the mat. There was no sugarcoating that.
I did see the end of the Storm Mariah match. I agree with basically everything Johnny said. That was good. Look, I'm a Christian, Mark. I love Christian. I would have loved if that was the way that Moxley lost the title, is Christian swoops in and fucking steals it from both of them. That didn't happen. I gotta tell you, the Death Riders thing is, I have absolutely no interest in watching it whatsoever. And when they're done, maybe one of the two of you can let me know, because I'm getting absolutely nothing from it. It sounds like most of the fan base isn't.
I think next pay-per-view, Swerve is beating Mox for the title.
Mm-mm.
So what do you think, Johnny? Quickly.
I don't think it's happening, at least until Texas. I don't think this is going to happen until July at All In. I don't.
Rough.
It's the course of the story, and
yeah, I can see Mox stuck in Swerve for a bit.
It's one of those storylines that you either love it or you hate it. And I think that's the point. You know, I love it
because
I do, because I love seeing this side of Mox again. I love seeing the Mox that is passionate, that cares, that is like you. I think in the end, the payoff is going to be worth the lows. That's what I'm building. I'm counting on the payoff being what it needs to be. It's going to be huge. For me, it has to be. I think it's going to be. And yeah, there's going to be lows. There's always lows. But, you know, like, look at the Bloodline storyline. You know, for so long, it was, yeah, this is time to end. Get rid of it. I'm done with this. Get over with it. This is it. We've seen too much. This has gone on too long. The ending was still satisfying because it went on so long, because the ending, it built to the ending that was the right ending. I don't want to rush out of a storyline just because people are like, oh, I've had enough of this.
But you agree Swerve's probably going to be the one that takes the belt.
No, I don't.
Who do you think's going to take it then?
It's Darby.
Is he even back from
no, that's why we're waiting so long. Like, it sucks that, you know, this is another one of those long-term storytelling that hits, you know, when the rubber meets the road, when real life gets in the way. If Darby had gone on his mountain climbing journey a year ago like he was supposed to, he'd be there right now, so you'd be able to hit the parts of the storyline that were always part of the storyline. Now we're sort of stuck in neutral, and you can feel it. You can feel that we're waiting for the next big thing. Now, could they change the plans and give it to Swerve? Maybe. But I don't think they're going to, because I think Swerve gets his title shot, you know, in 3 weeks at the next pay-per-view. I don't think quite frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if Ricochet isn't the one that keeps him from winning the belt. You know, and they can carry on that, because I don't think they're done. You know? So, yeah, I could just as easily see that happening and pushing it back that way. Like, yes, Swerve, this is an unfortunate point where it could go one of two ways. I think, personally, if you look at the comparable, we're at the point... the most likely storyline to compare this to is the NWO. I think that's the one that is sort of comparable to.
You're making me choke over here, man.
We're at the point in the storyline where Lex Luger got so hot, you had to put the belt on him for a bit. Swerve is Lex in this story. It's not the end of the story, because you're building it up to Sting. You're building it up to him finally being the one to beat the bad guy. Don't get me wrong, the booking that came after that was so shitty. It ruined one of the best storylines in pro wrestling history. But, you know, I can hope we've learned from those mistakes and are just going to continue making them. So I don't know. I could see Swerve winning it and then dropping it back in short order, just as easily as I could see just as easily as I could see, you know, Ricochet getting involved and keeping him from winning the belt that way. I think it's Darby. I think he's the one. I think we've been building to it for the last year, and I think it's his moment.
You might be right, because yeah, I'm ready for Darby to have the title, so I'm not against it. I do feel like this pay-per-view is a good reset, and I think that moving forward, I think we're going to see things continue to trend upward.
Yep.
Take that as a no. There we go. Sorry, I was muted, but I couldn't see my screen. Yeah, I fall in the category of I don't think there's anything good about the Death Riders storyline at all. I don't think Jon Moxley's a good actor at all. I think it's been fucking painful, and I'm someone that believes AEW is actually on the upward trajectory compared to where they've been the last couple of years. Big time. I don't think that's even really debatable. But the Moxley stuff, don't take this the wrong way, Johnny, because it's not a shot at you. But for me personally, it feels like you got to be a real fucking homer to be on board with the Moxley shit, and it just you know, I'll go back to my CM Punk fan hat here and say I don't bash him for criticizing Moxley's ideas because not great. But I'll tell you what, I would be on board for Darby winning. That'd be a lot of fun. Hopefully he survives his crazy ass venture first. So um, nice little prize for surviving Everest. There you get your world heavyweight title run. That'd be fun. I guess in 3 minutes or less here, boys. What did you guys think of the cage match last night? I'm assuming you've seen it on Raw. It's like, look, I've seen people going, well, it wasn't Ospreay and Fletcher. And I'm just like, you
It
have,
wasn't
first
meant
of
to
all,
be.
yeah, like, one is very storytelling based, and the other one is two of the best athletes you're ever going to see in a ring, period. I'll tell you what, though, when I thought it was going to be the kind of match where you don't see any climbing of the cage. Sorry, guys, my dog's getting a little excited over something. Um, and when Punk went up on that cage towards the top, I just like, oh, do not fucking Adam Copeland this shit,
Oh,
please.
right?
You don't need to. You shouldn't even be up there. Like, part of me is just like, okay, so Triple H wants this guy's career to end. Like, that's what point I'm at. Like, stop putting him in these spots, please. Was that another Abyss booked match? I don't know. But I wanted him down from there. There definitely wasn't going to be a Spanish fly off the
Yeah.
top with those two. But I thought it was, the storytelling in the match was good. I enjoyed it. The only problem I had with it is I believe we 100% called everything that happened last week.
Yep.
So I do think there's a big level of predictability to it. And even as a Punk guy, I could sit here and go, I get being able to call some things, but probably shouldn't be able to call it bang on. And now it's clearly those three heading into Mania. And I really don't like the idea of a triple threat match. I'd rather just Punk versus Roman. But I am curious to hear your take, not so much on the cage match, but the Paul Heyman being the monkey in the middle of all this. In a minute or less, where's it going, Johnny?
It is what we thought it was. It's going where we think it's going. It's building to the triple threat. It's building to Paul as monkey in the middle, which is building to Paul stating his allegiance at WrestleMania. That's where the story's going. Seth is the one that doesn't belong in this. It just, it's predictable booking at its finest. They booked themselves into a corner. This was the only way out of that corner, and still have some semblance of make people happy. I don't like the idea of a triple threat at WrestleMania. I don't like the idea of big storylines ending in multi-man matches at WrestleMania. I think they're stupid. I've never liked them. With the glaring exception of one, which is the one we can't talk about anymore. But
that was a good match, though.
Yeah, it was, because the story made sense. And they built it over the course of a year. But I digress. It's, all roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to this match. I don't think this is the right place for this match as a triple threat. I don't like it. But it is what it is. It is what we expect it to be. And it's going to be, Paul in the middle. He's going to be, in sort of dueling promos and stuck in the middle and, make your choice, choose between this guy, choose between that guy. And quite frankly, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't walk out of WrestleMania with Seth. Because,
Well, that would be the unpredictable thing to do.
That would be the shocking. That would be the only way this angle could shock me.
Which means they're probably not going to do it.
Well, yeah, fair enough. But
I agree with Johnny. This is basically a means to an end to get the triple threat. Clearly, what's going to happen is Punk's calling in his favor because Roman laid his hands on him. So now we're going to get the triple threat rather than basically a singles match between either one of them. So this is how it happens. It suck a little bit, but it is what it is, and they'll put on a good match. Let's be honest, they'll put on a good match.
Oh,
sure.
I mean, their match will be better than Cena versus Cody. Let's be honest here in terms of
More than
quality
likely.
and storytelling. I don't even think it's close. It'll be miles better, and it's probably going to be the best thing on the card. But if it was, I'm just throwing this out here. Say Punk or Seth had dethroned Gunther and Roman won the Rumble, I would be like, okay, I see a triple threat for the title. But knowing so much of this is based on, Monkey in the Middle with Heyman, it really just doesn't fit properly. I think the Monkey in the Middle is better served if it's just Punk versus Roman, which is why I wouldn't rule out what Johnny suggested. And, if Heyman walked out with Seth, kind of gives him reason to be in the match. I also think it's the most unpredictable finish of them all, meaning it's likely not to happen the way things have gone. I'll give the bloodline storytelling this. Okay, a lot of it is based around logic, and a lot of it is based around movie script storytelling. Paul Heyman was doing a big discussion on it a couple months ago. I forget what movie he said was a big. It's an old movie, but was a big like Kickstarter for the whole thing. Here's my take before we end the show, and I'd just like to get your guys' feedback on it. So people are cheering Roman Reigns now, correct?
Yep.
Even
They were
with
last
him
night,
coming
yeah.
out screwing both, cheering Roman. When the Bloodline thing first started, not cheering Roman. Massive heel. I think the Bloodline storyline now, which is basically become Punk Roman Heyman, is everybody around Roman has either developed or changed, or their character has grown and they've made changes. The Usos, Sammy, even Paul. But Roman hasn't changed at all. He is the same guy now as he was when he was at the pinnacle of being a heel in charge of the bloodline. He made no attempt to save Heyman from disaster over several weeks. Obviously, with a lack of dates in your contract, there's only so much they can do. But in story, he has treated Heyman like shit time and time again. He's treated everyone else like shit time and time again. And if you don't think Punk is going to bring this up on the mic, he is going to bring this up on the mic. It's happening. So for me, logically, knowing Punk has a favor and knowing I don't think they want to hold it off a whole nother year, is I think Heyman's turning on Roman at Mania. And Punk's going over in the match. Seth got his win last night. And Roman's going to disappear again. And we'll probably see some sort of rematch at SummerSlam with Punk and Heyman versus Roman, not in a handicap match, so we're clear. I don't know if Punk will have a title by then, but that's the way I see this playing out. Thoughts?
I don't hate it.
I think
I can
Roman's
get
still
down
the
with that.
same asshole he's always been.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that the whole thing with the bloodline storyline for him was he was going to basically be the biggest heel in the world, and that at some point he would have that babyface run, and technically this is kind of what he's got. He didn't even have to change his character. But yeah, I agree with you. I kind of actually like that idea of adding another wrinkle to to the bloodline storyline by having finally Heyman turn his back on him and say enough is enough. So I like that.
I'm at a point now where I don't expect the unexpected with Hunter's booking.
Which is why I expect this.
At this point, I expect the most obvious thing to happen. And it's, I think at the end of the day, I think Paul's just going to walk out halfway through the match. Just leave everybody. And that's going to lead to a few months of, well, who is Paul with now? Who is Paul with now? And then at SummerSlam, we probably have Punk versus Roman one-on-one. That's my guess. But then again, that's actually decent, smart booking, so I doubt that it'll come anywhere close to that. And Paul probably sticks it out through the entire match and just cries in a corner, watching everyone beat each other. I don't, I don't have enough care in this match. I said this on my stream over on Twitch last night when I was finishing up the showcase. There was a video that set up the Seth Roman match from Rumble 2 years ago, Rumble 2022 Royal Rumble. I said it on the stream at the end of that video. It is very sad that we just watched this video in a video game, and it is better than any promo we're going to get leading to this triple threat at WrestleMania. I believe that.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
No, I do.
I haven't seen the video game, so.
Yes, but it's Paul doing a promo. Like it's a TV promo from Paul, building up to a video game match, which is what makes it so damn good.
I have more faith in Punk. I don't know about the other two, but I have more faith in Punk to be able to go out there and set the world on fire between now and Mania like he did a week ago. So, in terms of in-ring product, I don't know how it ends. I called the cage match, spot on. So if I was to call this one spot on, I'd say Roman's about to beat Punk, and I don't think Paul's getting in the ring and hitting Roman, but I could see Paul pulling the referee out of the ring, sort of thing, and no DQ. It's triple threat match. So, anyways, we got to go. Like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications all to keep up with all of our content we have here. Next week we will be reviewing Daredevil season 1, episode 3. Johnny now has my hopes up that Frank's already in the next episode. Now I'm going to be sitting here waiting for him, and he's not going to show. I
can only tell you that he's credited.
Which sometimes means something and sometimes means nothing, as we all know. Check out our channel here in about 10 minutes' time. We'll be watching Andor Season 1, Episode 3 together. It's the final episode in the opening arc to Andor Season 1. I'm going to see if I can post a link in the chat to that. Just give me a second. Johnny, where can everybody find you at?
Oh, here,
when
there,
you're streaming
everywhere,
next?
but twitch.tv/bros before pros. I think Thursday night we're streaming again. That's the plan right now. Probably going to stream on Friday as well. I don't have a 100% lockdown plan on that, but MLB The Show launches its early access on Friday, so I might be playing that. Might be playing more WWE. Might be doing something special. Who knows? Only time will tell. But Thursday for sure, and maybe Friday.
Randy, how about you?
Well, you can find me on X at Giggity Giles. I'm also doing the Sports Brew chat, Sports Brew, and that's hopefully with free agency kicking up, we'll do one this week. If not, probably when the start of March Madness. But just Google Sports and Brew if you like to listen to guys bullshit, drink, and talk shit about each other. Then that's right up your alley.
All right, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Again, if you're interested in watching Andor with us, head on over to the other stream. We'll be live in about 10 minutes. Posted the link in the chat. We'll post another reminder as we go live, and we'll see you next week. Take it easy.